Hello, everybody. Welcome to TJK Shares. This is another beautiful day that God has given us. We praise and thank Him. We on this journey with TJK Shares, have promised to you, our viewers, will bring you ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things. We've taken you through so many continents. We've taken you through so many different countries. You've met amazing people on this channel, and I know many young people want to be like these people. Today, we are extraordinarily blessed and happy to be hosting two of my good friends we met many years ago. Few years ago, they are not many years old. We met a few years ago at an event in New Jersey. Tim, Jarrett, and Taylor are the ones who made this happen. Mark and Dillon are two young people who have put their lives aside to go around the world and save other lives. Mark and Dillon, welcome to TJK. Thank you for making time. I understand Mark is speaking to us from Ukraine and Dillon is speaking to us from New York. These are two people who have dedicated their lives to save, to serve, and to help people of Ukraine who have faced so many challenges in recent years. Now, I will say I am in Michigan. I turn on TV every day. Yeah, a year ago, every time you turn on the TV, you saw Ukraine and what was going on in refugee camps, people crossing. We all know how it happened. This year, when you turn the TV, you are looking at Israel and Hamas. Few years ago, when you turn the TV, you are looking at earthquake in a different country. Crisis come, or crises come all the time. These two gentlemen have stayed put and made a promise and started something I love and I really happy to help with, which is Mission for Ukraine, to support men, women, children of Ukraine who are going through a crisis. Welcome, my friends. Thank you for making time. Welcome to TJK channel. Please introduce yourselves one by one and tell us a little bit about yourselves and your upbringing.
Awesome. I guess I can start. And Jackson, thank you very much for the overly kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you. My name is Mark. I was born in Kharkiv, Ukraine, which is the second largest city in the country in the east. Used to be the first capital of Ukraine.
Mm.
Uh, my first time on a plane was just 6 months later, though, as a newborn. My parents immigrated to Baltimore, and it was their first time on a plane also. We came as religious refugees, which was a status that was generously extended by the U.S. to Jews from the former Soviet Union. And then Maryland is where I was fortunate to grow up. My parents shipped me back to my grandparents in Ukraine over the summer holidays, and I sort of grew up straddling these two communities, which were both dear to me in their own ways. Um, Growing up, my parents worked really hard. Of course, when I was a kid, they still work hard to make the most of this amazing opportunity that my family was given. And now, looking back, I can really appreciate the sacrifices and investments that my parents made, and leaving behind the only place that they'd ever known, completely, reskilling into new careers with no knowledge of English or American culture, or doing odd jobs to make ends meet. My mom cleaning homes. My dad actually, he was a rock climber, and his first job in the States was washing skyscrapers in Baltimore. And there was only my grandmother to help look after me, who was also working. It was extremely stressful on my parents, as you might imagine, and on their marriage, but they stuck to it for me. And as it turned out later, for my sister as well. I'm 26 now, so at this point, I can sort of grasp the enormity of their decision in immigrating. But at the time, of course, this challenge sort of went over my head. I was mostly upset that didn't get that next yearbook or didn't have a North Face jacket. But I was extremely privileged. I had a very loving home and very dedicated and hardworking parents. Um, I went to Cornell in upstate New York, which is where I met Dylan, who was my first year roommate and quickly became my best friend. And I came into Cornell thinking I'd be a lawyer, and then I went on to work on Wall Street for a few years. And then when the full-scale invasion of Ukraine occurred, I was understandably thrown for a loop, and I felt that, the most important thing that I could be doing was to help these people. I didn't at the time know how. Dylan later suggested, and my family was fortunate to have been supported by locals in Baltimore for the first few months when we first arrived, and it was important to me that I could pay this forward.
Wow, 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 wow. I tell every person I host on this TJK shares. Many I know, some I know from when they were born. But every time I ask this question, I find something I didn't know. I didn't know your dad started his job by washing skyscrapers. Being a rock
Yeah,
climber, now it makes sense
and
because
he stopped because he got something in his eye actually, and at the time, like I don't think they had health insurance, or I don't even know that they knew like how the health insurance system works. So he was like, I should probably not do this anymore.
oh my goodness. Well, mom and dad, thank you. I know Mark mentioned that he was upset that you took him from his country, took him from his friends. But if you had not sacrificed what you sacrificed, he wouldn't be here and he would not have gotten this interview. So to mom and dad and to your sister, we appreciate you. We thank you for sacrificing and relocating so he can do what he's doing now. Darren.
Jackson, thank you so much again for having us. It's such a pleasure to be speaking with you and everyone that supports your organization and listens to all the wonderful guests that you have. I'm Dylan Carroll. I grew up in Ridgewood, New Jersey with my mom, my dad, and my younger brother, Peyton. Growing up, I was involved in a lot in my local community. My dad always insisted that I played a different sport every season, but I gravitated in particular towards tennis, which for me, my grandfather was a tennis champion in France when he was a kid. So I was inspired to try and be like my grandpa. And I also love basketball, which my brother, who's now 6'6", if you can believe it, I cannot beat anymore on the basketball court. Music was a huge part of my upbringing. I learned to love how to play piano and write music as a kid. And I also really enjoyed singing, which I started in my church, but then brought to doing in high school and even university, where I was a part of a cappella groups. I got to travel around the country and do some really fun performances. And that's always been an important part of my life. I also volunteered frequently growing up, which ties into the work I do today, but I hadn't known at the time. I was a Boy Scout growing up here in Ridgewood, part of Troop 5. I eventually became an Eagle
An Eagle
Scout.
Scout.
Yeah,
Oh,
I serve my community in a lot of different ways, from small bake sales to repairing ponds and trails. And my Eagle Scout project, what I did was there's an inter school courtyard at my elementary school, and it fell into disarray and was being used as a place to store garbage. And I refurbished it, completely cleaned it, and made it a place for kids to be educated outdoors. And that was important to me. So that was my Eagle Scout project. And I also volunteered my church a lot in local communities. And after high school, I attended Cornell, where, as Mark mentioned, we met as roommates our first year, quickly became best friends. I met Mark's family, loved them, had a lot of really amazing memories and moments there. And I got a degree in history and graduated in May of 2020 amidst COVID, which was difficult for everyone. And following Cornell, I worked briefly as a history teacher as well as a consultant, leading up to the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, which started in February of 2022.
wow. Singer, huh?
Yes, he's a man of many talents.
He goes
I'll
out. Many, Now you have opened up a can of worms, because when we are ending this interview, you are singing us a song.
That's okay. I can do
Oh,
that. I'll
yeah.
even send you a performance.
Oh my goodness, you're going to perform for us. That's going to be a second one. We had a preacher here who also sang a song. But
Oh, wow.
both of you grew, one in Baltimore, where I have been and love it. For our listeners who live around the world, Ridgewood, where Dylan grew, had a high school. When I walked to that high school, I thought I was walking to a university. Ridgewood High School is big.
Big
Spent
high school.
hours trying to walk from one class to another students. So, and again, the people who connected us, Garrett, a founder of Team, grew up in New Jersey, and he started this organization that helps young people in high schools to make a difference in the world. So, Jarrett, I know we are going to host you as a visitor one of these days. We thank you for connecting us to Mark and Dillon. I want to jump. You go to Cornell University. That is an amazing university also where I've spoken before. And you are roommates. And then what happened that turned you from your jobs you had taken out of university to start Mission for Ukraine? Jump us to that moment. What happened and why two of you?
You know, I guess to set aside the obvious, I am from Ukraine. I was born there. So, you know, for me, I knew these people, neighbors, my parents' classmates who were building their lives, and in a sudden moment, they lost all of that, and they found themselves at the lowest point of their lives. And you know, I knew the language, I had experience with traveling, and I could help with something. I was certain of that, even with mundane tasks like preparing documents for people crossing the border, or finding resources and tools that were, you know, made available to these people, but they were still a bit elusive because you either had to speak English or you had to like call this number, but that number wasn't picking up, and you've got like, you know, four kids running around you, and you're at the train station, and like there's just a lot going on. And you know, I imagined in a different world, I would have spent my entire upbringing in Kharkiv. I would have gone to a Ukrainian university, and I would have worked at a Ukrainian firm. And you know, now here we are, these people, you know, all kinds of people, new parents that just bought an apartment in Kiev, or you know, they worked at KPMG or a local startup, or they worked remotely for some U.S. company. And you know, they had aspirations and hopes and dreams, and in a matter of hours, their future became shockingly unpredictable. And you know, as I mentioned, I was lucky to spend the summer breaks between school years in Ukraine, and experiencing the places that my parents had grown up in, learning the street names of certain neighborhoods as well as they did. But you know, I was also able to create my own experiences and memories, and build relationships with these people and places. And um, it was jarring to see the rug pulled out from under these people, right? Some who had, you know, seen their country, the country that they had lived in, collapse in the early 90s, thank God. But you know, this was still very turbulent. And you know, they came out hopeful and committed to building this new future. And this was robbed of them. And I felt a sense of duty as a, you know, first generation immigrant who was now equipped with the kinds of, you know, social and cultural, political, financial, whatever capital that I had, you know, acquired, and that I could use to support these you know, very well deserving and unbreakable, incredible people. And it was, you know, of course, not an easy decision from a personal standpoint, from a professional standpoint. There was a plan, and this was like, phew, like completely unrelated. But you know, when I was leaving, my parents were, of course, extremely anxious, and like marginally encouraging. And you know, they recounted neighbors in Baltimore and folks from places like the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society and local synagogues in Baltimore that were there to meet my family, and you know, help them crowdsource furniture or blankets for our first apartment, and explain the beast of the health insurance system, or you know, how to get their landline phones fixed. And my mom told me that, you are this person to these people. And it really moved me. It still sort of doesn't, I don't know, it just feels a bit bizarre, I guess. Going back to this ordinary thing, I think for both Dylan and myself. But we were so grateful for the support and commitment that we had gotten from our friends and family and colleagues. I had like, elementary school and middle school teachers reach out to me. I had like the mothers of ex-girlfriends reach out to me. So like it went far and wide, and these people were really just connected with our ethos, and it resonated with us, and they resonated, with our mission, and we felt indebted to empower those who were already helping themselves in Ukraine. Locals who had the highest capacity to help their fellow citizens. Um, they had the knowledge and the cultural proximity, but they lacked the resources to make it happen.
Very, very, very well put. When you think about immigrants in the United States, people come from all over different places, but not many go back to do what you are doing. And I come from Uganda. I went back to do something. It is a very few groups of people armed with good friendships and relationships who say, I will go back and I will do something for my people. And I've said this many times, I'm going to say it again. If people in this country also did the same thing, we would not have ghettos, we would not have lack of health care. If the operas of the world went back to Baltimore and built schools there, if the Magic Johnsons of Lansing went back and built arenas in that place, if the NBA James LeBrons who are doing it in Cleveland, in Akron, went to do that. Mark, you're a good example. Thank you for setting this, and thank you for recruiting your roommate.
Actually, my roommate recruited me.
Wait, Jackson, there's a twist here. There's a twist here.
Oh,
what
you are the one who
inspired me.
Well,
because when the invasion started, it started on a particular day, which is significant to me and Mark. Mark and I, aside from being best friends, we actually have the same birthday, which is a pretty unique similarity. And our birthday is the 25th of February, which is the day after the invasion started. And as I had mentioned, I had met Mark in 2016 when we started university. And about 2 years in, after being friends, Mark invited me to Ukraine. And I got to meet his grandfather, his family, his friends, and a lot of the people there. So I had made my own personal connection to the country. And so obviously when the invasion started, immediately I'm thinking about Mark because our birthday is the next day. But I'm also thinking about all the people that I was so fortunate to meet and form a personal relationship with. And after about a week of everything happening, Mark had been spending a lot of time, raising awareness. I was helping share things that he was sharing, raising money for, as Mark said, local individuals that were best equipped to help themselves amidst the chaos of the early part of the invasion. And about a week in, I went over, to speak with Mark, to check in on him. Mark, you were pretty bereft. It was a really strenuous and stressful time, and I saw my friend in pain. And I don't know how it came out of me, but I said, well, Mark, why don't we go over there for a week and help? And to which Mark responded, you mean fly towards a war zone? And I said, yeah, exactly. And we thought it was a crazy notion at the time.
If you insist.
Oh my God.
and oh yeah, no, and then Mark was the one that was more gung-ho, and I was like, wait a minute, we're actually doing this? And
yeah, I'm like, what do you mean? You offered.
Within 24 hours, we had purchased one-way tickets to fly to Eastern Europe and to help in whatever we could. And so that my first inspiration to go and help was because of Mark. I'm not Ukrainian. My heritage from my mom's side, I'm part French, and my dad's side, really far back came to the Americas in the early parts of this country. And so that kind of led to, my second part of wanting to help was because I was personally outraged. My values, the things that I stood up for in being a scout and serving my community, and the values that my parents had, taught me, and the principles that I had gotten to build in my own life and experiences, they were being violated on a world stage in my best friend's origin country.
Yes.
It was outrageous, and I wanted to be of help not only to my friend but to people that were going through the catastrophes that I had read about in history books. As a student of history, as I mentioned, is my degree, and I knew of all the different kinds of people throughout history that have stood up in spite of terror, in spite of powerful people trying to get whatever they want. And I felt that Mark and I could do something together. And Mark confirmed that and helped push me and bring me over as well. And we couldn't have done
Whoa.
anything. We're not the two of us. And so, yeah, 1 week after has now turned into 2 years of serving these people. And Mark and I are very honored and blessed to have been doing it for as long as we have.
Wow, my apologies. I thought here Mark was holding your hand, twisting it all the way that you got to do it. You are the one who was twisting his hand. Let's
That's
go
right.
home. Met your
It's
grandpa.
I was
every
just a deer in
every
headlights of
road's
what was going on.
yeah, it's a two-way street.
Two seeds in a pod. Wonderful. So you started a mission for Ukraine. Let's jump to what achievements you have had since you started mission for Ukraine. What have you accomplished, and mostly what stands out for you, each of you as an individual? When you think about what you have accomplished, what is the moment that goes, this is my aha moment and I'm so proud of it?
Yeah. So, many international organizations are present in Ukraine, of course, but there have been, they found it challenging a bit to operate in Ukraine because many of their frameworks and processes are often set up to function in failed states or states where this is, quite difficult. And so these same practices sometimes overlook existing functioning systems in Ukraine. And, these organizations have an unbelievably big task and a huge role on the ground, but in some ways it also creates, a parallel system that's perhaps occasionally missing its best fit. And the reason is because Ukraine has a an organized and well-educated and motivated civil society that has responded to this. Of course, this is where Ukrainians have really shown their courage and their bravery and their resolve. And they are, there are people that are already helping themselves, but they have unique challenges. And in the way that we have assessed this over time, and of course, our work has evolved over time because it started, meeting people at the train stations in Krakow, and just literally booking Airbnbs or going on booking.com and trying to get a place for them to stay for 2 weeks so that they can figure out what just happened, get their kids registered in schools, and fill their refrigerator with groceries. And since the refugee crisis has sort of subsided in Europe and more broadly, we then realized, well, hey, if we're going to continue this, then we should be really intentional and thoughtful about where can we add the most value, and that meant going to Ukraine. And so that's what we've been doing now, and our intention is to pour fuel on the fires that are already working, and to empower these local communities that, for a number of reasons, have difficulty, accessing international resources, or they just don't have enough people to, to make grant applications, or they don't have anyone that speaks English, or, there's just so many things going on. And sometimes it's, they may not have light for 3 days, or it's very complex. And, over the last 2 years, we've developed a robust network of community leaders, mayors of small towns, local NGOs, vendors, relationship with medical personnel, who we speak with every day, and who we spend a lot of our time with on site throughout the country. And every quarter we pinpoint the most pressing needs, and we find the most capable teams that are addressing them within the community. We work to vet and verify these projects. We're there. We have our ear on the ground, and we are active components of these process, and we work with the teams hand in hand to make these projects a reality and expand their own scope and competencies, and help them expand what they're doing even beyond our current means. And as an example, there's a village just outside of Kharkiv, and we've assembled a team of teachers and speech therapists and psychologists to organize a youth activity center for hundreds of kids in this village who have they're not in school because there are a lot of the educational infrastructure in Kharkiv has been damaged, and in this case, their school was simply destroyed, and they have no opportunities to socialize or have like intellectual stimulation outside of running around the neighborhood, which is great fun, but you sort of need a little more than that, especially at such formative ages. So we worked to find local contractors, and we pulled in some building material stores to help renovate what was a badly damaged medical clinic into a warm, secure center with childhood programming like dance classes, English lessons, fitness, and at this point there are like 60 kids that come here every day. And it's really sort of built upon itself. Now parents come here to hang out with other parents because it's again, it's like the only place in this village that's renovated, that's repaired, that there's a space, a hall big enough for the community to come together. And recently we even learned that one of the moms has started to cut hair there as like a source of side income, which is very cool. And so we're working to engage the supporters around the world that have made this possible, and our other projects. We've repaired over a dozen apartments in Kharkiv. We've delivered medical devices and supplies to neurological units in Kiev and elsewhere. And to connect the people that have made this possible directly with these teachers, with the parents, with the local town administration, with the physicians that have benefited so greatly from their commitment. And our goal has been, creating this vicarious connection and fostering an authentic relationship between our donors and the final beneficiaries, and fostering a real sense of ownership and community. And this is new for us, and so we are getting better with every week, and it takes time. And in the future, we will continue to iterate and refine and replicate this model to help solve the challenges that matter in a timely fashion. And hopefully even create a forum for the M4U community broadly to make new friends with like-minded humanitarians the world over, and to be able to really to text the teacher at the school and say, hey, what's up? And she'll respond with, hey, we had this this arts and crafts thing that happened today. Here's an image. But we've also worked in delivering mobile hospitals, which has 2 surgical operating rooms and sort of more trauma and medical care oriented things for chronic care patients that didn't have access to insulin or anti-epileptics or other drugs because the pharmaceutical supply chain had collapsed.
Very good. Now, wow, that's a lot of work for 2 people, but I know you have a lot of volunteers also and supporters from all over the world. And I'm hoping this interview, this conversation also expands that support system. So for those of you who are watching, we are going to have a link, Mission for Ukraine, in the comments, in the description, and you can click. You can see exactly where Ukraine. Many people have listened to all the news, but they cannot find Ukraine on the map. So we want
biggest country in Europe.
Yeah, we want you to find where Mark is located right now. We want you to direct resources there. Your next TikTok, your next Instagram, your next Facebook is to raise awareness about the plight of all the people who are suffering in Ukraine. You've talked about your accomplishments, achievements. I would like you, Darren, to focus on obstacles. What obstacles and difficulties have you faced running this organization in 2 years? You, apart from the obvious, many of us can't speak the language, and you are helping people who might not speak the language. So please build on that and tell us, for an American young man who is playing football right now in Alaska and says, what obstacles am I going to face if I have to try to do this work in Ukraine?
That's a great question, Jackson. I think, as Mark said earlier, we had never, done this kind of work before. Service work has a lot of components that are similar to other kinds of jobs that you can have. A lot of communication, a lot of administrative work, but there's an additional component of the human quality of doing volunteerism, of helping people in really desperate conditions, which can really impact you. Because when you meet so many people at such difficult points in their lives, you start to realize not only how much you have and like that you have to give, but how much has been taken away. And you feel a really deep need to and desire to help everybody you come across, which can be draining, because you simply can't help every single person. You can help people in a direct way and kind of aligned with what your feeling is and what you've gone in with your intentions of how you're going to help. And so there is a challenge there. And Mark and I both, in the first early weeks of going over, there was an energy around helping that, it just propels you forward. I think we were sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night, and I think we drove over 4,000 miles in 2 weeks, helping people and bringing aid and, helping folks find an apartment, as Mark was saying, or, get groceries. And that lasted for 2 weeks, and then you're drained. And you don't even realize necessarily that it's happening early on. And so taking the time to take a step back every once in a while to see what you've done, to see how you're able to make an impact is really important, because it can be very, very challenging for some to allow themselves to take that perspective, to allow themselves to realize I've been doing a lot. And if I want to keep continuing doing a lot, I need to be able to assess and reapply and reassess and reapply. So that's one obstacle that I just, encountered first off. And then I think too, as I think of the different things that, Mark and I have had to go through, is that people will always come and go. You should be very trusting and open in your relationships, but also understand that, people are your partners, the people that you work with, they're going to be people that are with you for the entire time. And there are others that are only going to be there for an incidental or one-time project. And that's okay. It can feel difficult when, you're working alongside with someone and then suddenly they're not necessarily there to help anymore. But it's not a reflection of you or your work or what you're trying to do. It's, you have to remember that everyone is their own person. Every organization is their own. And what's most important is for you to stay aligned with, what you feel is really deeply integral to the way in which you're able to help, and to believe that no matter how small the effort, in the grand scheme of things, ultimately you're helping people. And it should be something that is deeply motivating and inspiring, even though you might, some folks might disappear along the way. It's all right. There are tons of other obstacles, but those are the first two that came to mind.
There are so many. I run an organization. I'm asking you a rhetorical question. I know, but I want our listeners to get to know some of these things. We are going to go a little bit further, a little bit longer than we had anticipated, because this conversation is so crucial and very important. It's not every day that we will get both of you in one space, because you are out saving the lives. When a crisis happens, you went there as individuals, you eventually launched this organization. Maybe, Mark, you can address a question: how does Mission for Ukraine collaborate with other organizations and stakeholders achieve your objectives? We know USAID is there. We know Red Cross must have come in running, different relief organizations. How are you two collaborating and networking with others to advance your mission?
Yeah, so I think the best way to explain this might be through an example.
Yes.
We are, we live here. We've been here. We're very plugged in to local networks, to local affinity groups, and even things like running clubs or like co-working spaces that are still functioning despite drones or rocket attacks, because we have generators and shelters. But as one example, for instance, we are working with a neurological department in Kyiv that before the war was primarily focused on civilian needs. Of course, since the war has progressed, they have had to expand their capabilities to share with many more trauma victims and much more complex surgical operations, and also balancing that with civilians, older folks, everyday people that are faced with chronic medical conditions who still need to be taken care of. But there's a limited number of beds in a hospital. There's a limited number of physicians, and so unfortunately, in Ukraine, for a variety of reasons, the hospitals function in some ways like our schools do in the United States. Right. So like often at the beginning of every school year, if you have any teacher friends, they're always asking for some kind of money to buy crayons, to buy books, to buy notebooks, because it's just like they're not going to go to the county district to get this thing because it'll take forever. It's not going to happen. And so teachers individually have to take upon this expense because they want to deliver a good experience to the kids. And so the same thing is true for the incredibly overwhelmed medical services and medical professionals in Ukraine right now. So we're working directly with people like Dr. Daria at this neuro unit. She's one of the few women neurosurgeons in the country, actually, and they've been working around the clock. She literally works 7 days a week, and we sort of discussed what are their needs, how are they handling this capacity, and it was clear from this conversation that their existing equipment was simply not, it was not good enough. It allowed them to, accomplish their needs to some extent, but it was quite dated, I believe. So essentially, we provided a microscope to them. These things are expensive, like they're like car level expensive.
Oh, yes.
And the existing equipment that they had was from the early 2000s or maybe even the late 90s. And generally speaking, these things last for longer, but not this long and not at this level of use. And so this neurosurgeon nor her team, they do not have the resources to crowdfund. They don't have the time capacity to solicit and to share what they need. They just, they're in the operating room. And so they're just sort of going to make the best of the situation that they've been given. And we feel like it's our responsibility to identify those people that are most competent in the most pressing environments that just don't have the capacity or means to spread their need to advocate for themselves, and to be able to be that person for them, and then to engage the people that are very keen on helping directly with this physician. So it's really about taking an active role in the community, knowing about meeting new people, learning that someone's friend is an uncle. Someone's your friend has an uncle who is running a bakery that is providing bread to the internally displaced apartment buildings on in the city or in the outskirts of the city, and they're not able to meet the amount of food and bread rations that they're making because they just don't have another kitchen. They can't afford to buy more kitchen equipment, and again, it's sort of sometimes there are channels for these people to be helped, but they are, unfortunately, they're just not going to find them, because again, they don't have the time to do this. They don't have the time to file for these things, and that's sort of our role, right? Is there are real problems. We can describe them, characterize them. We can demonstrate directly how it's going to benefit this community, this group of folks, this individual who's putting their heart and soul into it, who's very well equipped to solve this problem already. They just need, they just need resources and capacity to do this. And that's really what we're about, because these people are extraordinary. The response of the civil society in Ukraine has, it's been world class. We will continue to write history books about it. It's amazing. But you can't do it on your own. And so we're trying to be this sort of Ukrainian American link that can really contextualize what's going on and make these problems real, because they're just small things that you don't think about when you're only seeing things on the news, because you can't go into the nuances in a 10-minute feature segment. And as you said, the news and media coverage, and there's a lot of stuff going on in this world. There's like 8 billion of us, and the world's pretty big, so there's a lot of stuff to cover. So yeah, sometimes things get, things fall through, and it's our responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yes, that is so true. We are going to talk a little bit about, Darren, you can address this. What does the future like? And after you address how the future looks like, I would like you to address the high school students in New Jersey who I have met and you have met, who are working so hard every day to raise awareness. Give them advice or guide them on how they need to continue to advocate and why they need to continue advocate for Mission for Ukraine, but also similar causes or addressing issues similar to yours. Then I will ask each of you one last question, and we can wrap this up. We will include more information here. We include the website. I know we have plans to link up with Global Giving, of which I serve on the board. We have plans to link up with other individuals in New York, in Boston. So this is a cause for humanity. It is not for Mark and Dillon to take on their shoulders alone. This channel is for free, so anybody can get this information, but it's also to promote causes and issues around the world. So we as human beings can all get together to solve these problems and make this world a better place. And we do this because we believe it can be better than it was yesterday. What are the plans, Darren?
Thanks, Jackson. Yeah, so I think I'll start with addressing kind of the high school students, the younger people that we were all very fortunate to get to work with and advise and
not
show.
all high school.
Yeah, not all high school. And
all
just
high
like some
around the world, pay attention and listen.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can do something.
Yeah. I think it really starts with, Mark and I like this concept of a North Star. It's coming to understanding and identifying and connecting with things that you truly care about and that are connected deeply to your own values. And looking at different organizations and causes and reaching out to them to see how you can contribute. It's often forgotten that the act of reaching out is typically that is the first barrier that people encounter. It is that first step in getting to actually engage with the thing. And it can actually be a big one. Sending an email sounds easy, or, sending a text message to a chatbot, but a lot of people don't actually do it. So it starts there. And it can be something like joining a specific team at a nonprofit or an organization, helping them with marketing and fundraising. But it can also be smaller, saying, hi, I am a musician and I'd like to, do a concert, or, go into my town and raise some money, or I'd like to start a club or organization at my school or in my town. Could you provide me with some resources to help me do that? Because you have to remember, a lot of nonprofits operate with very limited resources. And so there are a lot of opportunities for people to make a significant impact by using their unique individual skills and networks and opportunities that they have in their own communities through volunteering. It's also important to remember that you need to stay informed. If you want to help something, and continue to help something, it's important that what is the situation going on and what are the ways that people are helping. You can do this on a local level by, finding neighborhood digests, digging into kind of weekly newsletters, talking to the people in your communities that focus on the specific issues that you're interested in. And on a broader international level, you can tie into reaching out to thought leaders and people that are, either there on the ground, like Mark and I oftentimes are in Ukraine, or people that are, traveling and speaking about different issues that they're involved with. But there are all these different things that you can do to really engage with these different aspects. But it starts first and foremost with really just thinking about something that matters to you. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be going out and changing the world. But if it's something like cleaning up the stream or the brook in your town because, you really care about frogs or crayfish, like that's your thing. And you can take what you have and you can take the things that you love and you can apply them to making a difference in your local community or a larger community if that's what you want to do. But searching and reaching out is just that first step. Staying informed and then engaging with those organizations and with those causes that you care about. That's kind of the following processes that allow you to make a difference and an impact. As I mentioned, I'm not Ukrainian, but for the last 2 years, I have spent most of my time in a country that prior to meeting some roommate in college, like I would have never had that connection. I would have never known these people. And I used my own, with Mark, we used our networks, we used our individual skill sets, and we applied them to the crisis at hand. We wanted to help, and we took the parts of ourselves that spoke most to us and applied it to solving issues and helping people on the scale that we were able to. We didn't go out with the intentions of making an organization. We just went out with the intentions of helping people. And we're blessed that it's grown into what it has, but it starts first and foremost with that first step. What is it that I want to do? Who is it that I want to help? And then starting. So that's kind of my speech to the young ones out there.
Yeah, so the appeal is there. You've all heard Dillon make that appeal. It started out as let's help few people. Now it is a full-fledged organization. What are the future plans, Mark? If you can hit like 3, I know there are many, but give us just pick 3. What do you want to do in the future?
Firstly, it's being very keen and thoughtful on engaging the people that are helping us do this, because we both feel strongly that people should take ownership and should connect with the people that they're helping. The things that Dylan and I are most motivated by are catalyzing ordinary people in their everyday life to take that extra step and be thoughtful about how they can improve either their local community or the world at large. And so for us, it's really identifying ways of being creative in engaging the people that we're helping with the people that are enabling us to do that. So that's sort of thinking through technology, thinking through sort of next generation solutions for the world of philanthropy, and thinking about how to tie that in. I think something that we really were inspired by is the charity water approach with the GPS trackers and all their vehicles. That's a wonderful idea. Unfortunately, for obvious reasons, in a war zone, it's not particularly safe to do something like that, right? But there are so many other ways to do that. So one is certainly the sort of technological element and expanding donor engagement. So that's sort of the bread and butter on our ethos. Second is continuing to be really close and proximate and authentic with the people that we're working with, right? So I think that what sets us apart is that our relationship with the partners that we work with. Obviously, we have not done all of this just the two of us. We work with people on the ground, with local NGOs, with communities, but our relationships are always much, much, much deeper, much richer than merely, grant applications and some interviews. These are people whose birthdays we celebrate together. These are people who, we call when there are things to celebrate, and we can advise and talk about when there are moments of crises. And, it can be very difficult, of course, given the combat situation, to work in this way sometimes. And I think it also, brings people closer together, because we really rely on each other, and we rely on this sense of hope, and delivering that. So it's making sure that no matter what we're able to do at whatever scale we're able to help people. Of course, the more people we help, the better. This is the only reason why we're doing any of this in the first place. But we should never lose sight of this relationship, because at the end of the day, if we've learned anything, is that like the only thing that really matters ever is people. And so that relationship, that friendship, that collegiate relationship, must always come first and foremost. And that's really the the magic of unlocking trustful and productive and relationships that sort of build upon it. And finally, it's really, as I mentioned, our organization, like all organizations in moments of crises, has evolved. What we've been able to do has evolved. Our process has evolved. So it's about continuing to make things systematic and to some extent more, I don't want to say like vanilla, or more procedure based, so that we can replicate the successful model more frequently. But yeah, it's about segmenting this so that every quarter, we are able to lead a project that from start to finish in that 1 to 3 month period can really make a meaningful impact on the society, on the communities, that is self-sustaining, right? So, we've gotten to a place where in the well, I should say we've gotten to a place where, unfortunately, getting to a place in Ukraine right now is a situation that ebbs and flows. As we see it right now, we've gotten to a place where the sort of some level of stabilization has allowed us to predict things moving forward and invest into areas that will benefit from a more fulsome investment, right? So, of course, distribution of food and hygiene kits is critically important, particularly in some of the recently deoccupied territories. But it's also important for people to receive the help that they need right now. And, there are a lot of well-intentioned and well-funded organizations and governments that are, constantly talking about reconstruction and rebuilding and all these things. But unfortunately, many people and many organizations, for obvious reasons, of course, are wary of doing this.
Yep.
And so that means that, it's wonderful that you're going to rebuild this, a neighborhood in Kharkiv that used to be one of the largest residential neighborhoods in all of Europe. But nobody is doing this in a huge way like they're talking about, because they're scared to invest that kind of resource. But
That's
the people are still living there, right? So for us, it's like, we're rebuilding homes. No, we're obviously not going to go and rebuild an entire neighborhood. However, to what extent can we get every single person a bedroom, a bathroom, and a kitchen? And just some basic minimal livable quarters, because they're not going to move anywhere. They are hell bent on remaining, which that's what they're doing. And they're still living there. So they're going to live there in the cold without windows, or they're going to have windows and insulation and electric. It's sort of up to us and to make these processes more systemic, as we're evolving as well as an organization, as leaders of this organization that are also learning from experts like yourself and the plethora of people that have been so kind and guiding us and helping us navigate. Yeah, those are
wow.
that's how I see the future.
Yes, the three things. Cornell didn't teach you how to summarize things, Mark. We
Yeah,
will
so it's
link this in the comments again so people can look at it and click at it, and we'll get the website Mission for Ukraine on to the to our comments so people can ask you questions. And I hope you have a YouTube channel so people can ask back and forth. We have young people who ask questions back and forth. The question we ask everybody who has been hosted here, you've watched some of these videos, you've seen it. What advice would you give yourself at 18, knowing what you know now? Summarize the summary, please. And when that summarized summary is done, we will start with you, Mark. Advice you would give yourself at 18. Dillon, you give us that advice and sing just a little a cappella. We want to be able to close before the top of the hour. Just a little chorus, then we can close it out. I can say right now, so nobody has to hear my voice again. Thank you for making time. All the best to all the people we are serving in Ukraine and all over the world. And may the best come sooner than later. We continue to do this. We can't do it alone. We need all of you, our listeners and subscribers, to join hands together to do this work and do it effectively and do it transparently. Every coin going to Mission to Ukraine is accounted for, and you can find all that accountability and ask all questions our two co-founders. Thank you for coming today. Advice to young people. Summarize the summary.
Thanks, Jackson. If I was speaking to 18-year-old me, serving others is not an either or decision that is somehow stacked against your professional objectives or personal passions. It's our collective responsibility to improve the world, and it shouldn't be left on full-time nonprofit professionals or in the field humanitarians alone. If you want to join a team at an exceptional NGO, that's a deeply fulfilling and enriching path, but it's far from the only way to make an impact. If your eyes are set on being a pilot or a software engineer or an author or whatever, or dancer or a lawyer, take that extra step to be thoughtful, and see if you can incorporate serving others, serving your community into a weekly or a monthly routine, but something that's, in the same kind of relationship that you have with your, with fitness, going to the gym or going to church. Donate to St. Jude's every other time that you check out at Walgreens and you see that, that little thing, or, help feed the animals at your local shelter the third Saturday of the month. Or if you're, an accountant or a TikTok professional or something, pick one pro bono client once a quarter for a cause that you really care about. Don't wait for, opportunities to come to you to fundraise. Don't wait for that Thanksgiving 5K at your local YMCA to hand out water bottles. That's great. If you want to, do that, definitely go do that. Help the Y. But don't forget that you can do so much more if you are really thoughtful about what can you do best and what's going to energize you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have two pieces of advice. The first is to spend as much time as possible building authentic and meaningful relationships with a diverse range of people. And I say diverse range because as we learned throughout our process, it was because we knew so many people in so many different areas who also knew so many different people in different areas that it allowed us to move the ball forward for our organization and our work to help people, which was incredible. You learn really quickly that no one's an island. No one achieves anything by themselves. It's because of mentorship and advice and people's generosity that you're able to learn and engage with the world in a really impactful way. And you never know, it might change the trajectory of your life even in unexpected and rewarding ways. And the second piece of advice that I would give is, to remember that success and fulfillment take time and consistent effort. Cultivating a sense of patience and to continue persisting towards your goals and your dreams, even when progress seems slow, is fundamentally important. hard work will outbeat talent 9 out of 10 times. I believe that. And the ability to not only endure, but to maintain your focus during challenging periods, that is oftentimes what distinguishes success and successful outcomes. So I would tell my 18-year-old self to, really remember that as you push forward into your life.
How's the process?
Call us, a little call us or capella call us since you're a singer.
Okay. I'll do. So at Cornell, it was very, very common that during, Greek Life Rush, girls would come and ask for guys in a cappella groups to go and sing things for girls that were joining their sorority. So this was a song that I sang frequently, which was Sunday Morning by Maroon 5. So I'll sing a little bit of that. All right. Sunday morning, rain is falling. Steal some cover, shed some skin. Clouds are shrouding us in moments unforgettable. You twist to fit the mold that I am in. But things just get so crazy, living life gets hard to do. And I would gladly hit the road, get up and go if I knew that someday it would lead me back to you. That someday it would lead me back to you. Let me back to you, Jackson.
Thank you. Ladies and
You're
gentlemen,
welcome.
keep subscribing, keep sharing. This is a channel for you. We appreciate you, Dillon and Mark. Be safe, Mark. We hope to see you back stateside. God bless you and travel safely. May this work continue to change more lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson.
Thanks, Jackson.